Malolele in Bulavinaka. My name is Fe'iloakitau Kaho Tevi, and I'm a member of the Anglican Diocese of Polynesia. I come from Fiji and from Tonga. This is a story of a journey of hope, a story by the young people of the Anglican Diocese of Polynesia. This story is called God's Loimata, our oikos. Our oikos, or our household, our home, is this vast Pacific Ocean that we call the Moana. This vast Pacific Ocean is so vast that we can include all of the continents of the earth, and we can still find space in our ocean. Our ocean comprises some 25,000 islands, 10 million people with some 19% of the world's existing languages, contains the richest diversity of coral reefs on the earth. Territorial waters covers some 17% of the planet. And if you had a tuna sandwich yesterday, chances are that tuna came from the Pacific Ocean, as we provide 60% of the global tuna catch. We are stewards of this gift of God, God's creation, God's people, pristine environments, and this place and this ocean, its environment is what we call home. In 2017, the church, the young people of our church, underwent a training offered by the University of the South Pacific on community integrated vulnerability assessments, using a toolkit that also used geo-satellite imaging to be able to plot the vulnerable areas and the vulnerable spots in our community. In 2018, the Tongan communities and this particular parish of All Saints Anglican Church in Tonga had the opportunity to implement their learnings from the training. Tropical Cyclone Gita hit Tonga in February 2018. In the preparation for the cyclone, the young people got together and implemented a pre-cyclone vulnerability assessment where they identified the elderly, the widows, the single mothers, the vulnerable, the infrastructures that were vulnerable to strong winds, flood-prone areas, and they identified the need to help the elderly and the widows. So they came together, they collected some $300. And out of those $300, they bought what was enough for 10 packs for 10 widows and elderlies in the community. These packs consisted of candles, biscuits, 2 tin fish, and some matches. The young people went about distributing these basic necessities to our elderly couples and our single mothers and our widows. They went about doing their task and their role and their responsibilities. But what the elderly people gave them, what the single mothers gave them in return, was a sense of gratitude, but also a sense of empowerment that what they were doing mattered, and what they were doing was important to these elderly people and these single mothers. They were part of a community. They were part of the oikos. Tropical cyclone came. Tropical Cyclone Gita damaged Tonga, and the young people did the assessment of the damages in the areas that they covered. They went about quickly cleaning up the communities, cleaning up the houses, pulling down the broken branches, and also in the process, they drafted a report about the damages in their communities. They submitted this report to the partners, and the partners, in their appeals, were able to collect enough to bring to Tonga. So what started off with $300 became 2 containers worth of building materials and tools, together with prepositioned supplies to be able to supply these emergency and necessity packs to some 40 families in the 4 Episcopal unit parishes in Tonga. So what started off as one parish, now with a gift and with the training and with the partnership with our overseas partners, we were able to provide for 40 families in 4 parishes of the Episcopal unit of Tonga. Such was the impact of this journey that the General Synod in 2018 adopted a motion from the Tikanga Maori and the Tikanga Pacifica, calling for a framework to enhance the resilience of the church towards climate change and disasters. And in that motion, it called for the creation of a climate change commissioner for the church. This climate change commissioner was to be driven by and led by the constellation of stars, or a constellation of priorities. And in this constellation of priorities, theological education on climate change was most important, advocacy around climate change, research around disaster preparedness, around climate resilience, partnerships, also the issue of climate displacement, and more importantly and ironically, access to water in this vast ocean that we call the Moana. Such was the impact of their story and their experience that the Diocese of Lincoln invited them to present their story to the conference, to the Water of Life conference, in which these young people, these very young people that underwent the training, went through the disasters of Tropical Cyclone Gita, learned the lessons and implemented the plans. They were able to go to Lincoln and tell that story to the world. Our story is about building resilience in our communities. In the future, we want to map our vulnerabilities, future-proof our assets, develop simple and clear plans, train our priests in disaster preparedness, but also raise funds to be able to cater for future disasters. So much like Mr. Lihati here, sitting down on his chair, knee-deep in water, beside his house that was blown down in Tropical Cyclone Gita. Our responsibility is to cater for our vulnerable. Our responsibility and our culture will continue to remind us that we are the guardians of God's lo'imata, God's tears, our moana, our ocean. As reflected by Archbishop Emeritus Winston, Mary's tears turned from tears of sorrow to tears of joy, a sense of resilience that in her decision to step up through her vulnerability, God reached out to her as a child. Much like our young people, like Mary, our young people have taken that bold step, using their vulnerability to be empowered, to become proud, resilient, passionate guardians of our ocean, God's lo'imata, our moana. Thank you.